Welcome everyone to the Prospect Profiles here at the Miami Dolphins franchise, where we'll be looking at college to see some of the best players that we could look to draft. Usually I'll do 2 positions per episode, but since it's quarterbacks, we're just going to do this position for the episode, starting with JARRETT STIDHAM from Auburn. Stidham is a really solid player, projected as a late first-round talent. I think that's a little generous, but could be a player who the Dolphins could potentially take in round 2 or round 3 if he's available, as obviously Ryan Tannehill is not the future at quarterback. Stidham is pretty solid, A- throw power, B throw accuracy short, and B- throw on the run, which I think makes him pretty balanced. He has accuracy, he can throw on the run, and he has throw power. He can scramble, so I think he's a pretty solid prospect, but I don't know if he's first-round caliber. The next guy we're going to look at is Mississippi State's Nick FITZGERALD. He's a very underrated college quarterback, and not a lot of people talk about him. He does have some injury stuff that we're a little wary about, but other than that, he is a really solid prospect. He has the same top 3 skills as JARRETT STIDHAM: A- throw power, B for accuracy short, and B- throw on the run. He is a field general, which is the scheme fit, but if we do start struggling, then Adam Gase will be fired, and that might not be the scheme fit. So at least for right now, you could just take the scheme fit for a grain of salt, just because once these guys start playing, who knows who's going to be the coach. Next up, we have Michigan's SHEA Patterson. Patterson originally went to Ole Miss, but did transfer because of all the scandal stuff going on there, mainly last year. That hasn't really been talked about this year, but Patterson's a really solid quarterback, projected as a third-round talent, maybe late second. B+ play action, B+ throw power, and B throw on the run. We haven't seen a full year of him in Michigan yet until this year, so I think the way he plays could certainly have an impact on his draft stock. Let's look at a couple of sophomores real quick, guys who won't be in this year's draft but will be in next year's draft, starting with Tua Tagovailoa. Tua did not start a single game in his freshman season, but did play the second half of the national championship and led Alabama to come back in that game after being down by a lot at halftime. Tua led the charge during the second half to win the game and win the national championship for Alabama. He is most likely getting the starting job over Jalen Hurts this season, and he could be a player we look at in 2020, probably going to be a first, maybe second-round talent. And the man Tua Tagovailoa beat in the national championship last year is now sophomore Jake Fromm. Fromm does have the #1 athlete in the country, Justin Fields, behind him at quarterback, but it seems like Fromm's getting most of the work at that position. Fromm should also be a first-round prospect in 2020, but not this year, since he's not eligible. This is only the second year of college. Personally, I don't really have a preference at this point between Tua and Fromm. We need to know a little bit more about them, especially Tua, since we haven't seen a full season of him, and look more in depth in them, but we're probably going to focus more on them next year, since they're not going to be guys who get picked this year. Next up, we have Jake Browning from the University of Washington. Browning has been a really good starter for a long time at Washington, as he is now a senior. He will most likely be picked in probably the 5th round, so the Dolphins will have a lot of time to be able to pick him up. A- throw power, B- for accuracy short, B- throw accuracy mid, and he is a scrambler type, so he can really do it all. And I think it would be a really solid pick for the Dolphins to pick him up as a backup. He's balanced, he has a good arm, solid accuracy, I think that could use some work, and he is a solid scrambler. Next up, we have the senior from Missouri, Drew Lock. Lock is the second projected quarterback to go. He's going to be picked probably in the top 10, and he's a really solid player. I don't know if I'd say he's top 10 worthy, but he's been a good player throughout his college career. A- throw power, A- for accuracy short, and B throw on the run. So that throw on the run tells me that he does have a little bit of scrambling in him, but he is more of a pocket passer. He's a field general, and he does have a good arm. So I would be very surprised if he was not picked in the top 10 by a team that needs a quarterback, like maybe the Dolphins. We'll see. Next up, we have Clayton THORSON, who's one of the more underrated quarterbacks in this draft class. He could have declared last year and probably have been a 3rd-round pick, but instead he is staying in school this year. He is a projected 5th-round pick, B+ throw power, B- for accuracy short, and B- for accuracy mid. Those top 3 skills don't look great, and he's not the greatest of scramblers, but overall he's a solid passer, and he's not too talked about, and I think he could have a solid shot at being a good backup in the NFL. Now we got one of the more interesting quarterbacks in this year's draft class, and that is DeAndre Francois. Francois has the talent. He can scramble. He can throw the football. He's probably the most athletic out of this bunch, but he has had some injury concerns as week 1 of last year against Alabama he got injured, and he has had some character issues as well, but B+ throw power, B+ for on the run, B break sack, and he's a scrambler. He looks like a really good player, and someone that the Dolphins could take a risk on in like the 4th round or something, and I think it could be worth it. I think he could have a good gig as a backup or maybe even a starter one day. Last but certainly not least, we have Justin Herbert from the University of Oregon. Herbert is a projected top 5 pick and will most likely be the first quarterback selected in this year's draft. He was injured for about half of his sophomore season. When he was healthy, Oregon was one of the best teams in all of college football, and when he wasn't healthy, Oregon, despite having Royce Freeman, was almost a laughingstock. They were not that good at all. I believe they only lost 1 game with Herbert healthy. A throw power, B for accuracy short, B- for accuracy mid, and he is a scrambler. So he has the athletic traits. He can scramble, and he does have the arm. He just needs to work on his accuracy, but the upside's there. And Justin Herbert has a really good chance of being a star in this league. And he is the best chance out of all the quarterbacks since he's the projected first one to be picked. And he's probably going to be the best one. So that's going to be it for me. Do you guys like these? Do you guys want me to improve on them? Next one will be running backs and receivers. I'm out. Peace.